From the prior part of the board. But the middle of fun.
Recording in progress.
Hello. Arvia, can you hear me?
Hello? Yes, I can
Oh,
hear you.
finally. Can you see me also or no?
Oh, I'm seeing Pakistan China Institute and I see everybody. I think your
Video on kare ji.
camera is off, or let me check. Now I see a lady wearing a scarf.
Yes. The lady wearing a
Okay.
scarf. लेकिन मैं तो आ ही नहीं रहा हूँ जी इसमें. Camera जरा करें ना जी.
No.
Can you see me now?
I'm not really here. Now you are. You look great as always. Good morning.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you,
7
Arvia.
o'clock here, so I woke up at 5 for you.
Oh my God. I'm very grateful.
Well, it's 7. It's it's a pleasure being here, and I've seen that there are very distinguished panelists, and including a representative of the Chinese embassy. So thank you.
Correct. And I'm very happy that you are waking up at 5 a.m. so you can fast and participate in Ramadan with us since you are waking up at 5 a.m.
I will certainly try and fast, which is also very, very,
Very healthy. How are you, sir?
Yes, I'm good.
Very good to
I'm
see you.
good.
Assalamu alaikum ji. Yes, sir. How are you? So good to see you. Thank you for coming. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, very nice.
And by the way, you can notice, as you might notice, I've even decided to wear green to honor Pakistan.
Yes, green is our national color.
I'm here for about half year.
1.5 years. We have not met here. Yes. Actually, Mr. Wang, he is the political counselor. Mostly come, but our Prime Minister is the ambassador. So Mr. Wang will be representing Wang. And after 15 years, he will also be the political counselor. Yes.
क्यों फिर बंद हो गया जी? शमाइला बंद कर दिया फिर?
Hello. Hamza. Very nice. Hamza.
तो क्या मसरूफियत है? बैठे
बस अभी हम शिफ्ट हुए हैं तो
अच्छा
वही मसरूफियत थी हम थोड़ा सा
अच्छा nice. It's now थोड़ा settle down. आपने गुलबर्ग ग्रीन में लगाने लगा था टाइम, लेकिन मैंने कहा जरा कैजुअल फ्राइडेज होते थे ना जब डीसी में काम कर रहा था. इधर आ जाए थोड़े सबको इधर करो. कैसे हैं आप? खैरियत से? आई वाज द डिबेट तो काफी तबादला ख्याल हुआ. बाद मैंने कहा थोड़ी बगावत कर लेते हैं आज. आजकल वैसे भी सीजन है डिफाइंस का. हाँ जी. थोड़ा सा. Hamza and I did NDU together, sir. तो हमारी बड़ी अच्छी दोस्ती भी है and he is doing very good work.
change के experts
जी सर, हाँ, क्लाइमेट चेंज नहीं सर, आप नहीं, आपसे हमसे नहीं सर, अल्लाह का करम है। हाँ, आपकी रिपोर्ट हमेशा इंटेलिजेंस रिपोर्ट आपको मिल जाती है। अच्छा, खुद बताया आप? हाँ गए, इज इन फ्रांस। तो ठीक है। हाँ। हैं? वहाँ सर इंटरनेशनल
都是吧，有的是可能他们在 CPI 好像会蛮可靠的。好像对过年的时候搞过一次，当时就邀请我们看可能在上次你们来，那次你们来，那过年在2月5、6号的时候，
对，就是刚能出来的时候，
对，
刚过完，
正好又要大选了，是吧？
对，然后当时能出来就出来了。
嗯，
你现在能去
没有，现在现在摘月好像出来也没有什么事儿。
白天出来没事儿，不过好像终于稳定了。
今天应该要去见总理，然后再见总理。
开始要用，那现在采访总理，
然后你们要采访，
我们想采访，昨天刚在，
那总理之前接受过一次小康我的节目。
总理想他采访是怎么？他是通过使馆约的吗？还是直接跟他？
那还是自己约的。
我们昨天刚跟那个刘畅老师还有王川报备。还挺快的。
哎，我刚上周没几天就去。
他的那个内阁不是还没正式复习那个中央什么？
我们差不多都进，
已经正式。
所以他们就要发布。早晚应该就是外长。
对啊。
早晚就之前那个前面去的。有时也是那个单位的。
对我们整成，对我们整成免费劳力了。志愿者也真。
我也想做这个。有时候我也想做这个。我得希望等我以后我老婆在看，然后就会接触比较多。
挺好的。也会交流一下。
快乐。
他并不上快乐。
真的。我的梦想就是以后也不用写文章，也不用上场，没通过在家做好看。在国内那边还有事情。有个解释。
经济的帮助。主要太少。
那我们他们资源还会有。
不知道，我看是这个结束了。
他最终是要参照的。他只要参照整个得3个2年。
他已经几年了
？3年。还差不多3年。
要有毛病。
也是人让他主动不停的年轻人，只要他提到领导之后，就是不管怎么说都得上的。对。 对，还有现在也由不得他了，就是他得有意愿表达了之后才能放成这个位置，不会成为第二个报成为对你我记得我上学的时候报成这个地方，对，可能这个活动今天还要回去吃个领导呢，这也不是他自己能做，不像我们对这个。走，那个这个教授我没在国内说韩语，在参加外国，我要给你校作业，小弟怎么样？应该是个研究生院，但也不知道，万一是我的课程跟这个事情，那个上学的这个，没什么数目，我也不算在干多少题，就是他不是外教，也跟他可能，但是我以后可以还有一个全职是上全职是我的梦想，我一直有我们互相的梦想都是让对方全职工作，然后自己在家上，然后还在他的事业上进。对，但是他不太可能来当，因为他感觉有点荒废，就他的效益也不高。现在最近成了一个就是中东，一个就是东南亚，那他就考的都有成功。但这几年也不如最好的那几年，都是有一个咱们合作间，我们光年终奖就没有，这个前几年还有可能会 做过的。
你说这是你吗？
这家都是我们的，我上大一的时候都要读书，我上大四我才合作。我现在最新一期可能应该是05年。然后那个还有一个我的朋友，
Assalamu alaikum ji. Good morning. Good morning to everyone who has joined in Islamabad and to our distinguished participants and speakers who have joined online. We have today a very interesting mix of individuals who are going to talk about renewable energy investments along the Belt and Road Initiative, particularly with the context of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And in the light of the third Belt and Road Forum, which is underscoring the greening of the BRI in particularly the global south. And this dialogue is part of the pioneering initiative that Christoph Nedofil from Fudan University and Pakistan China Institute took in collaboration with also the Sustainable Development Policy Institute to, and this was about 2.5 years ago, to see how CPEC, which was and is considered a pilot project of the BRI, can have more low carbon footprint in the global south, particularly Pakistan. Today we have a very distinguished panel with us. On my right is Ambassador Moinul Haq, who has very recently returned from China as the Pakistan's ambassador there and spearheaded efforts of CPEC's second stage, particularly, which was SEZ investments, agriculture, etc. And on my left is Ambassador Masood Khalid, who was actually in Beijing during the inception phase of CPEC. And then we are joined by Mr. Hassan Daud Butt, who has actually served as the project director of this China-Pakistan Economic Corridor in the Ministry of Planning, Development and Reform. And after that was the CEO of the KPK Board of Investment. Thank you, sir, for coming. We also have Mr. Akhil Jafri from the Private Power Infrastructure Board. He's the Director of Planning and also overseeing the Alternate Energy Development Board, which is actually in charge of renewable investments in Pakistan. We have, again, another former ambassador sitting next to Mr. Akhil Jafri Saab. Thank you, sir, for also joining. We have Mr. Hamza Haroon, who's in charge and leading the V20 in Pakistan, which is the Climate Vulnerable Forum, and has been working on the most vulnerable 20 countries in the world. And he has just assumed responsibility as its lead in Pakistan. Thank you. From the Chinese embassy, we are joined by the Mr. Wang Sita, a young diplomat who is the expert of the Chinese embassy on the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. We are joined by the China Media Group as well, Ms. Tabassum, another colleague also, madam, from the Chinese embassy, and Commodore Imran from the Behria University China Studies Center, and other colleagues from different think tanks. My colleague, Mr. Omar Farouk, CPEC associate from the PCI, is also here. And going to the online, equally important speakers, my dear friend Arvia, who is a partner and board member of the management consulting firm Brains Capital, and who also co-leads the Ecological Transition Solutions Division and is a special commentator for CGTN, and has also been expert for the European Commission and a consultant to the UNFCCC. And Arvi and I were together in the COP very recently, and she's doing great work there. We are also joined by Ms. Hania Isad, who is the energy finance specialist from IEEFA, which is playing an important role in bridging these gaps and policy research, particularly in terms of in green solutions. And we are also working closely with Hania. Thank you, Hania, also for joining. And from and last but not least, from my alma mater, from which I've studied, Peking University, which is the leading university in China, we are joined by Mr. Wu Di, who is a senior analyst at the Institute of Energy of Peking University. Thank you, Mr. Wu, for joining this dialogue. And we also have Mr. Ali Taqir Sheikh, who is, I believe, on the way, who's also expert on climate change. One of the reasons that we have convened this discussion is to discuss, to get input, to get ideas on how the second phase of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor can be more carbon, low carbon, and green, environmentally friendly footprint in Pakistan. And how can we go beyond discussions and actually see that the new investments that come from China into Pakistan align with the vision of President Xi Jinping, which he has outlined very clearly and categorically in his statement at the 18th October Third Belt and Road Forum in 2023. And just want to give a quick context that in that, important meeting. He said that $100 billion will be allocated to the Silk Road Fund, China Exim Bank, and I believe the third one was the China Development Bank, to inject investments in green projects in global South countries, in Chinese outbound investments in the BRI. And this is like we have the just transition, which is more of a sort of a Western collective approach to lowering the carbon footprint. This is called the GIFT, GIFT acronym for investments in the global South. And this will be done by the Belt and Road Green Development Alliance, which will be playing a key role, of which Pakistan China Institute is a founding member. And in light of that, what we want to see is how can we implement and put into practice this vision of President Xi in countries like Pakistan, and in terms of what are the policy constraints, what are the institutional constraints, what are the structural constraints in our absorption capacity as well, from our market, from our regulators, of what are the bottlenecks that impede green investments from coming into Pakistan. And EDB and PPIB have attempted to solicit renewable investments from international companies, but they have yet to see that interest in its true manifestation. And we have to, one of the reasons we are here is to assist the government as well, to see what are the policies or specific new initiatives that investors would like to see in Pakistan from China, that they would prioritize and dive in to these new opportunities that Pakistan offers. We have, as Mr. Hassan Daud Butt has also outlined in many of his presentations, we have so much renewable opportunities from Balochistan to Punjab to Sindh. And in Thatta and Jimpir, we have successful wind power projects under the auspices of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, invested by the China Three Gorges, invested by some local companies, Fauji Foundation, Power China. And we need to also see what is the reason that the first phase of the CPEC, which we have so successfully delivered, and what were the things done right then, and what are the things that we need to get right now to give the impetus to this green renaissance, if I may say so. So this is the reason why we've gotten this together. And I really look forward to listening and learning from everyone here. I would like to ask Mr. Wang Sita, who is also representing the political counselor, Mr. Wang Shengji, to give his remarks. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you all the distinguished guests. And hello, yes, and Assalamualaikum. And बहुत खुशी है कि आजकल renewable energy के बारे में एक साथ गुफ्तगू करें. And interested by the customer Wang Shenjie and the headquarters of the Chinese embassy, I would like to share with you about China's remarkable achievements in the new energy area and the bright future of the CPEC second phase. And you might know that not long ago, China held the annual 2 sessions. And in these 2 sessions, we concluded that in the past years, the GDP growth of China has reached 5.2%, which not only achieved the expected goal, but also shows the vitality of China's steady economic recovery. At the same time, We are pleased to notice that in 2023, the most biggest highlight of China's eco-environmental production is the accelerated development of new energy and related industrials. In June 2023, the total installed capacity of wind, light, and hydropower in China has exceeded to 1.3 billion kilowatts, which historically exceeds the installed capacity of the coal power. And also by the end of the 2023, more than half of the world's electric vehicle were running in China, with a total of about 20 million. And also during the 2 sessions, the government work report also adopted and highlights that we will carry out the top 10 steps to achieve the carbon neutrality, which is aimed at realizing the green transformation through the development of renewable energy and new energy-related industrials. This is a very beautiful picture for not only China, but also Pakistan and the other countries in the world. And before unfolding this beautiful picture, I would like to first reveal with you about the achievements of CPEC that has achieved in the past few years. As a landmark project of the BRI, the CPEC power station have provided Pakistan with a low-cost, stable, adequate, and clean power supply. So far, there are a total of 14 energy projects have been put into commercial operation under the CPEC, and with a total capacity of more than 8,000 megawatts. Among these, there are many new energy projects, like the Hydro-China Dawood wind farm in the Xin province, which has the capacity of about 130 million kilowatt hours, benefiting about 200,000 local households. And the operation of this project does not produce any wastewater, noise, gases, or dust pollution, which is of great significance to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And the photovoltaic power station in the Gaide Solar Park in Punjab also has built a blue ocean composed of millions of solar panels in the desert, which has made a positive contribution to the promoting of local economic development and also to optimize the energy structure. And also the Karut hydropower station, which is one of the landmark projects under CPEC, which is the first hydropower project of CPEC. And the Karut hydropower station could annually provide the power generation in 3.2 billion kilowatt hours, which can also save about 1.4 million tons of standard coal and also reduce carbon dioxide emission by about 3.5 million tons. Apart from these new energy projects, I would like to say that the coal-fired power plants under the CPEC also use the most advanced technology, which is called the supercritical technology, which can significantly reduce the carbon emission of the project, much lower than the standards of their counterparts. Each project has won a lot of environmental awards from the international agencies and also the Pakistani government. Ladies and gentlemen, on the basis of this early harvest of the China-Pakistan economic corridor, I think that nowadays Pakistan's new energy development has also faced in 3 important opportunities. First is that the Chinese modernization could provide historical opportunities. President Xi Jinping, in a recent meeting, just highlighting that the developing clean energy and promoting the green and low carbon transformation has become the generation consensus of the international community to deal with the global climate change. We should comply with this trend, take good advantages, and make greater effort to promote the high quality development of China's new energy, provide safe and reliable energy security of Chinese modernization and made greater contribution to build a clean and beautiful world. And you may know that China is rich in wind power and photovoltaic and other resources, and has also led the world in the manufacturing of many new energy technologies and equipment, and also built the largest clean power supply system in the world. New energy vehicles, lithium batteries, and photovoltaic products also have a strong competitiveness in the international market. China has become an important promoter of the world energy transformation and dealing with the climate change. At the same time, China is also willing to let more countries, including Pakistan, to benefit from the Chinese modernization and develop clean and green energy. And the second is that the new government of Pakistan has provided a stable support for the developing of the green energy. We are pleased to notice that the general election of Pakistan has been held smoothly, and the new government has just been held in the recent days. President Xi Jinping also expressed his congratulations to the new elected Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif and the President Zardari at the first time, which shows the always strategic cooperative partnership between our two countries. As a close and friendly neighbor, China fully respects the choice made by the Pakistani people. At the same time, we think that we hope to see all the relevant parties of Pakistan jointly maintain the policy unity and the social stability after the general election, and provide more policy support for the development of new energy through a stable ruling term. And we could jointly open up a brighter future for the development of Pakistan. And the third is that the second phase of CPEC also provides a broad platform for the new energy. At the BRI Forum for International Cooperation, as Mr. Mustafa just mentioned, that President Xi made a solemn commitment to promote the 10 steps, including continually deepening the cooperation in green infrastructure, green energy, and green transportation. As a pilot project of the BRI, the construction of CPEC has also entered a new stage of high-quality development. It will adhere to the principle of high standards, sustainability, and the livelihood benefits. And we are confident that we will try to create an upgraded version of the CPEC. The second phase of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor will be further in line with the Pakistan's green development policy and create more growth points for Pakistan's new energy fields. Ladies and gentlemen, thinking with all these important historical development opportunities, China and Pakistan should work together to promote the construction of new energy and achieve the green development. We should work together to create a good investment environment. That under the CPEC, the energy projects have made a great contribution to Pakistan's economic and society. But we also see that many energy enterprises not only face some challenges, such as overdue payments and difficulty in the reduction from foreign exchange, but they sometimes also face some smear and false reports from the outside. And from my point of view, a good investment environment and the confidence of the investor sometimes are more precious than the purse, so that China and Pakistan should jointly create a positive and healthy investment environment. And also, we need to build the CPEC with high quality. China and Pakistan should promote the CPEC construction to take the road of green and low carbon development, and better link with the Green Silk Road with the Green Pakistan Initiative. We should focus on the resource conservation and environmental production, strengthening the cooperation in the green investment, green infrastructure, and the disaster prevention, and encourage more Chinese enterprises to participate in the renewable energy projects in Pakistan, including the wind power and the photovoltaic power. And we should also work together to build a clean and beautiful world. China and Pakistan should join hand in hand to deepen international cooperation in the new energy science and technology innovation. We should promote cooperation in the new energy industrial chain in an orderly manner and build a new win-win model for green and low carbon transformation of energy. We should jointly participate in the reform of international energy governance and promote the establishment of a fair, just, and balanced global energy governance system. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm quite confident that with the joint effort of both China and Pakistan, and takes the good advantages of both the Chinese modernization and the CPEC Phase 2, and also with the wisdom with all the guests participate today, China and Pakistan could reach more achievements in the new renewable energy cooperation and make a brighter and cleaner future for our next generation. Thank you all. Shukriya.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. I think your point about equitable green energy governance system is very important. And also, I think I'd like to add that when you talk about governance energy system, it's also important that, China is a part of the global South and the developing country itself. It's important that the share of responsibility and burden of countries, particularly like Pakistan, should be proportionate to their carbon emissions. And because sometimes, like at the COP, we feel that we are at the same level. We are being given the same responsibility to contribute as developed countries that have already undertaken industrialization and have actually used fossil fuels for their development. So I think this is something that we really need to factor into our discourse when we discuss. And we are very happy that to note that the Chinese embassy in Pakistan is totally in sync with this green development mechanism. And I really think that under the auspices of the new government, we can actually see some tangible way forward, tangible progress. I'd like to ask now Mr. His Excellency Ambassador Moinul Haq to talk about his topic, which is unlocking sustainable growth, collaboration for renewable energy in CPEC. Over to you, Excellency.
Thank you, Mustafa. Excellencies, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a time when our planet Earth faces an existential threat. The specter of climate change looms large, and the threat is real. And who would know better than us in Pakistan, which year after year are facing natural disasters of humongous scale. The destruction that we had seen in the last floods, the recent floods, was a stark reminder to all those skeptics of climate change. So this seminar, I think it is very timely to talk about not only the green technology or green energy, but I think the whole set of issues which come with this the threat that we are facing of climate change. I'm so happy to listen to Mr. Wong, his some briefing and statistics about the China's development and China's focus on green development, especially. Ambassador Masood Khalid, my senior colleague who has served in China for a long time, and myself, we have seen this development and this focus by China, Chinese government on green development with our own eyes. China is now a leading country in terms of financing, green financing. It is a leading country in EV, electric vehicles. It is a leading country in manufacturing of photovoltaic cell, batteries, smart batteries. So we are very happy to have China on our side when we embark on a journey, what Mustafa mentioned, green renaissance or green transition. When CPEC was launched, I think the two countries agreed that besides promoting economic, social, fiscal sustainability of the projects, they will also ensure the environmental sustainability of the project also. And as part of CPEC first phase, many green and clean energy projects were launched in the hydro sector also, like Neelam Jhelum, Karot, which was recently completed, and some of the solar and wind power sector also. I may mention that there are some non-steep projects in which Chinese companies are involved heavily, like Datsu and the Amir Basha also. And just to flag it here that in 4 or 5 years' time, these two large dams and another one is Mohammed Dam, which is around 1,000 megawatt. So 4,500 Dasu, 4,500 something, Diamer and 1,000. So we are going to have in the next 4 or 5 years, inshallah, around 10,000 megawatt of clean energy in Pakistan. And surely that's going to help way in our effort towards this green transition. Pakistan and China also became a member of Belt and Road Partnership on Green Development, which was launched in 2021. So the idea was more environmental sustainability of the BRI projects. Here I would like to mention three things important as part of China-Pakistan cooperation, which has been ongoing and which can be strengthened also in the years to come, especially with the new government in place now. First of all, it is about China-Pakistan Green Corridor. Mr. Wong also mentioned about it. The two governments have agreed to launch this new corridor or the new concept 2 years ago. And in all the joint statements issued during the 3 prime ministerial visits to China, this was mentioned and agreed upon. Now, the green corridor concept is not only about clean energy, because I was saying that this whole concept involved various sectors, various concepts. So the green corridor is about agriculture modernization, sustainable farming, smart irrigation. It is about food security. It is, of course, about environmental protection and climate change, but also about protecting our ecology, our biodiversity, the issues of desertification and afforestation, pollution control, and how to find green financing also. And of course, an important part of this was this concept is green capacity building. The two sides, especially the Planning Commission and NDRC, are working on conceptualizing and the implementation of this corridor. And I hope that with this new government, there will be more impetus to this process. Second point that I would like to mention in terms of Pakistan-China cooperation is Global Development Initiative of President Xi Jinping, which is a precursor of, you can say, or successor or a new concept initiative of President Xi Jinping of BRI also. So GDI aligns with UN SDGs. Pakistan is proudly the first partner country of GDI with China. So an MOU was signed. Yeah, Pakistan was the first partner country of GDI, like we were a flagship. This CPEC is a flagship project of BRI. So Pakistan also holds this distinction of being the first partner country. So under the GDI concept, of course, it focuses on education, health, but also environment and climate change. So a number, as you mentioned, that during the last BRI forum, President Xi Jinping, Chinese government announced $100 billion of new financing. So I think Pakistan stand benefit from this new infusion of funds into GDI and BRI, and we can take we can use projects under this GDI partnership for green energy and green transition. The third point, which is also important, and which brings to what my topic is how to unlock international partnership, is about the third party participation under the CPEC framework. As you know, that the two countries have agreed to invite third partners, third countries, third party institutions into CPEC projects. I can share that TOR, terms of reference of such a participation, has already been worked. The two countries are working on that. And I think that could be a very important step because we can get expertise, additional financing, and technology from the West, especially who are quite advanced in these technologies, green technologies, and bring new projects under the ambit of CPEC. Lastly, I would like to mention that, of course, these are not CPEC projects, but Pakistan-China cooperation in the civil nuclear field is also very important as far as green development is concerned, clean energy is concerned. Already there are 6 projects or nuclear plants, civil nuclear plants are in place in operation. That means about 3,000 megawatts of electricity. And in the next phase, we are talking about another around 5,000 megawatt of electricity to be generated through our project. So this around 8,000 megawatt of electricity would be a huge boost to our clean energy portfolio. Lastly, important is that if we want to go forward, if we want to go green, I think we need good, sustained policies. We need institutional support. We need availability of green financing. Our banks need to come up with innovative ideas how to finance such projects. And we need, of course, right capacities to adapt to this new technologies. With China on our side, I'm sure that we can make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Moinul Haq Sahab, for very, very, very incisive remarks. And I think we will really need assistance from yourself in actually taking this forward, because diplomacy is a very important part of it. And you've spent a lot of time there in Beijing, and also Ambassador Masood Khalid. I think, yes, we have to have, I think, a specific outcome-oriented analysis on unlocking that $100 billion for Pakistan, which has been announced by President Xi. Now I would like to invite my dear friend Arvia Mariani to talk about overcoming the hurdles, collaborative solutions for renewable energy integration challenge. Over to you, Arvia. And thank you for joining us and waking up so early, like we do for Ramadan at 5 a.m. So very grateful to you.
Mashallah, mashallah, everybody. And I am very thankful for being given the opportunity to be here. First of all, I would like to briefly consider the economic advantage, which is a game changer in terms of cost and investment opportunity for renewables and for green technologies. The representative of the Chinese embassy was speaking about the GDP growth of China. Well, studies and economic analysis have demonstrated that 40% of the growth developed last year by China in 2023 are produced by investments in new sectors. Those are the ones leading the transition globally. China is actually, this cost reduction is probably at global level produced by the manufacturing capability of China, which has taken the cost of photovoltaic solar panels to 87% less than it was 10 years ago. And this is a huge contribution from the perspective of tackling and addressing the global challenges. Now, the question today is how can we overcome hurdles and how can we integrate renewables and new technologies, not only in the grid, but in the economic sector, in order to leverage this potential for green transition into economic development. This issue is different if you look at it from a European perspective. And as you see on the background, and as my friend Mustafa mentioned, I'm also an expert for the Commission on a number of issues, and I do have, this is a honorary role as a European Climate Pact ambassador. The level of development that can be leveraged by the transition is based on the capability of becoming independent. Fossil systems are vertical, are connected to import infrastructures that make you dependent, if you're looking at it from a European perspective, from external providers of energy. And the same is true for China. China is a huge importer of energy, and this is an energy security approach that is leading China's commitment to become self-reliant in terms of energy production. And it is a technology advantage. It is becoming an industrial plan for the development of new competencies and capabilities. Europeans, United States, China are now cooperating, but also competing on who will win this new industrial revolution. And China, at the moment, this is my assessment, has started approaching the issue from a holistic, comprehensive, whole of society approach, which is giving them the lead because it's allowing them to make the decisions of a fundamental technology and societal shift, taking off and being able to bear also the investment cost and assets. Because what is blocking the transition globally now is the value of assets that are already being invested in infrastructure, legacy industries, and that are challenged by this transformation. I make the example always of the automotive industry. Legacy manufacturers, leaders until a few years ago, such as the European industry, did not take up the chance to invest at the right time in EVs and electrification because this was challenging our industry infrastructure in Europe. And this is how the Chinese companies and the vision of the government as well in this approach of I would not use the word planned economic transformation, but somehow a more active role of planification, decided to focus on industries that were not bringing about immediate short-term profit, but were consistent with the vision and the direction and the course. Now, the colleague before us was talking about the urgency. The European Environment Agency just came out with a very important risk assessment report for Europe. Europe is warming twice as much as the rest of the world. If we are around 1.2 Celsius right now globally, Europe has already almost achieved in some areas the 1.5. And this is going to be very costly in terms of risk management, integrated capabilities for reaction to short-term shocks, but also for the challenges to our economic systems. I was appreciating the approach of the previous speaker, explaining how you are tackling, and we need to tackle together all the economic industries, or they said economic sectors, because the challenges and the risks are affecting water, green and blue water cycles, which reflects on impacts on agriculture, which reflects on impacts on electricity generation. Hydropower is at risk. So this is very important for the CPEC, for instance. Water is becoming an issue of contentious matter between cross-border and transboundary projects. This is an issue for China as well. China is stabilizing their immense electricity grid build-up, for instance, from the Qinghai Desert, exploiting renewables, and the transmission lines that are being developed to take the electricity towards the provinces, the eastern provinces. And they're using a lot of pumped hydro as storage capability. But this also means that in many places in the world, and Southeast Asia is one of these places, and you have responsibility for one of the most sensitive areas in the world, collectively, the bordering countries, the Tibet, Sinai mountainous rings. 1.3 billion people depend on the water in that region. If the ice on the Himalaya melts, the whole region is going to be destabilized completely. So I have prepared a short video, 4 minutes, depicting the technology solutions and what we are doing and what is the trend. The keywords are renewable replacement, sector coupling, conversion of hydrogen for high temperature industry, related industry, or electrification, as China, for instance, is doing, taking, this means also displacing geographically capabilities, taking aluminium production from the current position in the east towards the Xinjiang region to exploit the potential of renewables. And the other thing that I would like to say very briefly to countries that are on a different level and phase of development is that the large infrastructure projects that are, for instance, dependent on the build-up of electricity grids, which are enabling infrastructure and fundamental for the uptake of electricity from renewables, and the stabilization that depends on high technology integrations such as ICT, smart grids, cannot be the only solution, because there is a potential given and brought about by renewables, which is about their independency for social development. Local off-grid photovoltaic installations can be extremely powerful to leverage the potential for livelihood in isolated areas such as in the countryside, and to create potential for economic development. I was in Sindh region a couple of years ago, in some areas where it's more difficult to activate economic development. The fact that you can rely on photovoltaic independently, or even build up of energy communities. Europe is changing, for instance, the legislation of the regulation of the electricity market. The same reform is happening in China, because the system, the infrastructure and technology change that is happening needs to go hand in hand with the redesign of the regulation of the markets. And a country such as Pakistan, with all the difficulties of having a heavy fossil basis, but also a regional, a very different provincial infrastructure endowments, is that you can avoid and leapfrog a phase of build-up of unnecessary technology and infrastructure, just focusing with low-cost investment for helping local communities, for instance, to access relatively cheap technologies. That will create a positive localization and spill-off of and increase, I mean, really potentially very important good effect on return on investment instead of going for the large one. I was in the same province, that was like 3 or 4 years ago, and we went to a wind investment, a wind park investment, which was co-developed by, I think, State Grid Corporation of China. The point is, like, some of these projects in Pakistan were not thought in relation to their utilization of the, where are you going to take this green electricity? If there is no consumption potential, then it is an investment that is not coming back for you, that is not coming back for the utility. So you really have to think in terms of end usages. That's very important. And the same thing applies, for instance, for African investments. Everyone is thinking about, or Kenya is going the right direction, thinking about how do I empower my local community. Europe is moving towards decentralization and prosumers. Chinese energy studies are working towards prosumers models as well. And this is quite effective. The other thing is we need to find a different way to pay for, to build up like profit margin. Is the vertical fossil system was based on a large capex investment model. We have to start thinking in terms of OPEX, including the time factor and including the fact that investments in renewables or in general in new economy, in the green economy, are heavy in capital in the initial phase, but they do not really generate, they don't have a very large operating costs throughout the process. And this is what is missing for the investors, because the investors have their justification at the moment under the current economic system, their justification based on the fact that the operating costs are very high, and then you factor those things, and then you create like the markup for the margin. So the cooperation must be also on creating new business models that are different necessarily from what we are used to. And this is a challenge. I would like to very briefly go on with that video to give an impression of where also the cooperation can be. And I'm taking ultra high voltage transmission lines, so long distance transmission lines, as a technology that has been developed in Europe by Siemens and the likes, and engineered in China over the past 10 years with large scale projects. I kindly ask our colleagues to play the video.
The European Green Deal is Europe's new growth strategy. We have to act now.
Climate neutral by 2050 means an industrial revolution. Old industries die, new industries rise. The main issue is energy. We need to transform the energy system. China is currently deploying ultra-high voltage transmission lines. With a global interconnected electricity grid, it will be possible to fully exploit the potential of renewables. Europe is also building a system of interconnects and a supergrid. For greater direct electrification, everyone will be linked and consumers will become prosumers. You can also have underground cables. Germany, where I live, is a good example. have the technologies to power the ecological transition.
I will just close by saying one thing. This video was made in 2021 when Europe was working on on our Green Deal and planification. The Green Deal is a huge legislative transformation. Today we got over 75 new pieces of legislation, directives, regulations, amendments that are being changing completely, rewriting or modifying the existing structure. A legislative structure that is behind the way we operate our economies. The pieces of legislation keep on arriving. Yesterday, for instance, the Parliament has approved the Building Energy Efficiency Directive, which is updating the results, the determinations, the goals of the preceding legislation. We are doing that because the Green Deal is the European NDC, the National Determined Contribution. And we need to approach this as an engineering project. And this is what the Chinese governance system is providing in general, a good example of project management for engineering realization. The energy transition is just an engineering project. And now we almost from 2021, we went on realizing large parts of what is envisioned in this video. Like the energy islands are starting being built in the North Sea, providing electricity, clean electricity from offshore. The numbers are growing exactly as it is happening in China. Now, we need, and that's very important, we need international collaboration. China is an element of this transition, but we also need countries like Pakistan, for your own interest, because the huge floods that you experienced before COP 27 in Egypt are the most compelling element that forces us all to act. And this risk is nowadays not anymore confined to a specific region. And we need you as well to ask very strongly for real action.
Thank you, Arvia, for this excellent presentation. And I think partners such as like yourself are very important in guiding the way forward. And the passion and the zeal that you have for action and going beyond rhetoric is something that I've always really valued and appreciated. And we would very much like for you to work more proactively with us as we proceed forward and as we actually proceed towards the new next COP, which will be in Baku. I think there's a lot that we need to do, and we really look forward to working very closely with you for that. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Wu Di, the senior analyst at the Institute of Energy, Peking University, my former alma mater, and his presentation is on renewable energy development and integration in China. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. I will go ahead and share my slides first. Okay, and my name's Wu Di, and I'm a senior analyst at Institute of Energy and Peking University, and I'm very honored to be here to give you guys a short presentation, and thank you for Pakistan China Institute for inviting me here. My specific focus is power sector transition in China, including coal power, phase out renewable energy development, and the power sector reform. Today, I will share you with some like latest situation on renewable energy development and integration in China. I hope China's experience and the lesson learned can be helpful for promoting the renewable energy integration in Pakistan and within the China-Pakistan economic corridor. China now is leading the world's renewable energy development. The total solar and wind installed capacity reached 610 gigawatts and 440 gigawatts in 2023, respectively. And 2023, last year, is a remarkable year for solar and wind development in China. In a single year, China has added over 200 gigawatts of solar and 70 gigawatts of wind. And China is expected to reach its national 2030 target for wind and solar installations 6 years ahead of schedule, which is 1,200 gigawatts of wind and solar combined. That is also China's NDC goal here. And together with the hydropower and renewable energy installed capacity in China has surpassed the fossil fuel power for the first time in history. And from the graph in the right, you can see the development of solar and wind in China is much faster than any other major countries in the world. In 2023, China's annual renewable energy additions accounted for around 60% of global total renewable energy additions, according to the prediction of International Energy Agency, the IEA. This number will maintain for the next 5 years. And renewable energy now is playing an increasingly important role in China's power mix. And in 2023, renewable energy additions accounted for over 80% of total power capacity additions, with solar alone accounting for nearly 60%. And also in this year, the total renewable energy power generation reached 3,000 terawatts, which accounted for 1/3 of total power demand in China, with solar and wind, these two power sources accounting for over 15%. And I can't see my screen now.
स्पीकर्स के अलावा जो है ना, बाकी सारों को एक्सक्लूड कर दें.
I will share my screen. Okay. So this graph shows the solar and wind curtailment rate in China. And from the graph, you can see the wind and solar curtailment in China during the past 5 years is maintained at a very low level, around 2 to 3%. But a lot of experts in China estimate that the curtailment rate maybe go up in the future. Since China has already over 1,000 gigawatts of variable renewable energy like solar and wind in the grid, renewable energy now is becoming a major challenge faced by China. According to the IEA, renewable energy penetration can be divided into 6 phases based on the VRE share in power generation. Can you see my slides now? So from this graph, you can see the variable renewable penetration can be divided into 6 phases based on the VRE share in power generation. And China currently has around 50% of variable renewable energy share in the power mix, which makes China currently in the phase 3. And that is variable renewable energy generation determines the operational pattern of the system. This is also the reason why we observe the dark curve of the net load, similar with California, and the negative electricity price in some Chinese provinces, like Shandong. And Shandong also has so far has the country's largest solar capacity. So the rationale for the solar and the wind curtailment rate maybe go up. First is that there are lots of variable renewable energy in the system. And the second is not economically makes sense to maintain the curtailment rate at such a low level. And China currently is making tremendously efforts in improving power system flexibility to make the system can integrate more variable renewable energy without damaging the power supply security. On the generation side, China is conducting coal power flexible retrofitting. By the end of 2022, China has nearly 200 gigawatts of flexible coal power plants. And this year, China has a goal to retrofit all the existing coal power plants in the next 4 to 5 years. Second, China is also promoting the development of pumped hydro. By the end of last year, China has over 50 gigawatts of pumped hydro plants. There are around 150 gigawatts of pumped hydro plants either permitted or under construction. And in addition, China is also experiencing a rapid development of new energy storage, including like battery storage, compressed air, and flywheels. By the end of last year, China has over 30 gigawatts of new energy storage, an increase of 160% year by year. This 30 gigawatts of new energy storage has made China already miss its 2025 development goal. So on the grid side, China is building a stronger grid and want to achieve more regional cooperation. China currently has built out of 39 ultra high voltage lines, these UHV projects, to connecting the renewable energy rich regions to the demand centers, which is coast area. In terms of regional cooperation, for provinces with different load patterns, provinces each other will have a lot of potential to have regional cooperation to support each other. Below this graph, you can see that in the summertime, Hunan provinces can support Guangdong, and in the winter time, Guangdong can support Hunan. So that is also very important, like in renewable energy integration and grid stability. And if you take Germany as an example, variable renewable energy accounted for over 30% of German power generation, but the country does a relatively good job in renewable energy integration and grid stability. This is because of regional cooperation. When there's a little variable renewable energy, Germany just imports power from neighboring countries, and when there are abundant variable renewable energy, Germany usually export power to neighboring countries. So China now recognized the importance of the demand side in renewable energy integration and in grid stability. Just last year, NDRC, the National Development Reform Commission, said that China could avoid the construction of over 50 gigawatts of coal power plants if we use demand-side flexible resources. That is because the load duration that exists 95% of peak load is only several dozen hours. And China now has mandated all provinces the DSR ability to reach 3 to 5% of peak load by 2025, with provinces with a load peak-to-value difference rate exceeding 40% to reach over 5%. A lot of front runners in China, like Zhejiang provinces, Jiangsu provinces, already missed its goal. Like they have like over 5% of the DSR ability. And the DSR is also the most economic approach for renewable energy integration and ensuring grid stability. From the table, you can see a lot of research finds that DSR's annualized cost is much lower than building like new fossil plants or building like pumped hydro, or even like lower than regional corporation, because in regional corporation you still need to build the grid system. So the way forward, China still has a lot of work need to be done to further to improve renewable energy integration, to maintain the utilization rate of solar and wind at a relatively high level. So first, China needs to further improve its market design, especially the spot market, ancillary market, and the green electricity market. Spot market is very important for regional corporation, and the ancillary markets is just like provide incentives for flexible providers to give them economic incentives to support the renewables. And the green electricity markets can enable a lot of companies, especially private companies, to purchase green electricity in the market. And the second is to strengthen the construction of and the upgrade of the distribution network. This is particularly important for distributed renewable energy integration. A lot of regions and provinces in China currently halt the development of distributed renewable energy because the grid system cannot handle any more distributed renewable energy into the system. So this is particularly important for further development of DRE. The third one is to strengthen the efforts of DSR. China has a long history to recognize to put more efforts in the generation side than the demand side. So if we can have more DSR, especially to manage the AC cooling loads during the summer peak time, China can integrate more renewables and avoid the construction of coal power plants. Because in a lot of provinces like Hubei and Sichuan, the AC cooling loads can account for up to 50% of the peak load in that time. The first is to moving some power consuming industries to renewable energy rich centers. That is include heavy industry, manufacturing industry, and the data center. Last year, China issued a policy document that to encourage data centers to build in the western regions, or that is where is the renewable energy rich provinces. The last one, I think, last but not least, is to be cautious about building new coal power plants. China currently has like 100 gigawatts of coal power plants under construction, maybe another 100 gigawatts of the power plants permitted. So new coal power plants will have a low capacity factor and high financial risks because there are more and more renewable energy online. And this will cause more like stranded assets for coal power plants, as well as negatively impact the carbon peak and the carbon neutrality goals. So I think the last one is also very important, to be cautious about building any other new coal power plants in China. So that's all I have today, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for your presentation. And it's very interesting to actually learn about the new power plants that China is building, and also that some of them are still fossil fuel. So I think that is also the part of the discussion here, is how we transition, because we have to have bankable solutions to transition, which are good for the investors, which is good for the host country, and which is a practical and doable format, which is win-win for both sides. So I think this is very, very critical. And I think we also need to learn so much from China, because I have had the privilege of going to Qinghai 3 months ago. And the wind power revolution there is very impressive. There's and while I was there, sir, there was a renewable energy forum that was happening, and because Qinghai has undertaken a lot of leaps and bounds on wind power generation because of the wind corridor in Qinghai, even though it's at a very high altitude. Also solar, yes, also solar. So now I would like to give the podium to my friend, Mr. Hassan Daud Butt, who will speak on harnessing the green potential of CPEC, pathways to sustainable development and environmental stewardship. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mustafa and the Pakjana Institute for organizing this wonderful roundtable with the kind of expertise that is around us. I think we can share and gather a lot of good insights into how we should move forward in CPEC phase 2. We are seeing and we're living in interesting time, as Ambassador Moinul Haq highlighted also, which has actually hampered the effectiveness of the renewable energy development, impeding the accomplishment of the UN SDGs. As a response, the world is further looking with realities and perhaps trying to electrify further. One of the key points that I witnessed in the last 3 to 5 months was the way that China and Saudi Arabia has actually moved together towards each other. And actually, in the recent Saudi China summit that was held, $5.6 billion worth of renewable and EV business deals were made. And this is quite interesting, actually. But we also need to understand that 2013 was the greenest year for Belt and Road Initiative. And during this year, about 56% of the energy projects under BRI, around 8.61 billion, were done with solar, wind, hydro, and coal. And I have my colleague Akhil here, and he'll speak about Pakistan's vision. And I endorse what, before he speaks, I endorse what he's saying. But I think some of the points that have been highlighted by Mr. Du on the transition towards this change, I think, is quite interesting. And one of the key points that I really liked in his recommendations and the way forward of Chinese is moving the industry to areas which are RE rich. And I think Pakistan also needs to learn on this. And perhaps when we are setting up our special economic zone, we need to work on and focus on this. But ladies and gentlemen, I'll just take you back to 2013, and I would like to highlight some of the important facts which were discussed there when His Excellency was the ambassador and was quite active in terms of bridging the gap between understanding. So in 2013, when the two countries started their engagement under the Joint Working Group on Energy, the first and the foremost agenda was develop roadmaps for energy transition and to build an energy basket that can ensure energy security by using all available indigenous resources, including hydel, and to boost renewable energy generation. As at that time, we were looking at our economic growth, and based on our numbers, we thought we were lacking about 3% of our GDP growth because of lack of industry and of course, high cost of energy, which still is, but I'm just referring to 2013. So while we kept on discussing for some time in Pakistan, it was mutually agreed to develop the decarbonization plans and integrate intermittent renewables such as wind and solar while maintaining reliability. And the challenge was about the investment in that. And some of the investment took shape in forms of the renewable projects in Jampir. But when people talk about hydel projects, I wish people can go and visit the places where these hydel projects are being undertaken by Chinese. I think like Dasu, like Diamir Bhasha, even Suki Kanari and Moman, these, if we could visit these projects, one realizes the the depth in Pakistan-China friendship. Because I think some of these places even Pakistanis do not dare going. And Chinese are working on projects day in, day out, under a lot of stress and a lot of challenges, including landsliding and several other security related challenges. And therefore, I think all of us need to acknowledge the effort and the support that China is giving in terms of our transition towards not just renewable, perhaps cheaper energy transition, because our industry desperately at this point, even household, I think they desperately need cheaper and more reliable forms of energy. And I think both things are important, because we must, and especially the policy makers must realize that this is not something which is part of a manifesto. This is basic human need. And when Mustafa spoke about just distribution of energy, and I think just distribution of wealth can also be linked to energy availability, because many areas in our country, even in the areas where these dams are being built, are without energy. So I think we need to focus more. Uh, and as Investor Moinullah highlighted, 8,000 megawatt of energy in our system is good. But is our system ready to accept that? Is our system reliable enough? Like China, they highlighted AC and DC transmission line around 5,000. Although we have done around 850 kilometers of transmission line, but I think we need to move forward towards that. And perhaps at this time today, we can do a SWOT analysis on how we should move forward. I think in terms of the first strength that Pakistan has, it is geographical location, which makes it a potential hub for energy trade. And also in terms of connecting countries which have large energy sources like Central Asia and Middle East, and connecting them to the countries which require energy like China, India, Bangladesh, even Pakistan. And I think this makes our case much stronger than what we promote. And I think since now we have understood the Chinese model, I think by 2015 we were able to understand how Chinese work on projects and how this engagement could move forward. I think we need to now work on perhaps facilitating the CPEC phase 2. The government role, I think, is in terms of policy making is good, but I think at this time we need a whole of government approach. Without that, without bureaucracy working and supporting this transition, without policy makers and even people in academia supporting this transition will not take shape, because this is easier said than done. We have had, and when I was watching a documentary while preparing for today's seminar, I was watching this documentary of great renewable projects. So I was so surprised that in a Western democracy, they spoke about Qaid-e-Azam Solar Park as one of the great achievement of projects. So I think in Pakistan, we should also engage in similar debates and highlight how great potential of CPEC is, because Qaid-e-Azam Solar Park in itself, the size and the support, 1,000 megawatt is not any less energy that we need. And then of course the Daud Power, the Hydro China project, the UEP project, the Three Gorges project, and several other projects which are helping us in this. But I think I would lastly speak about some of the activities and interaction that we need to do. I think the new government has now been placed, and I hope that the new planning minister will immediately ask for a JCC meeting, and perhaps having that in China is could be a good discussion, and perhaps in our interaction with the Chinese leadership, both and also stakeholders which work in the government, I think we need to work on how and negotiate to sign cooperation documents on grid connectivity, power utilization, and also work on pricing of electricity. I think some of the progress that we were making were halted, especially in the private sector in terms of energy transitioning. There were good discussion of some chambers working on as off-takers for energy, especially in the renewable form, and setting up their own grids. But because of COVID, this could not move as fast as. But now I think now is the time that Pakistan can leverage the initiative to address the challenges in renewable energy transition, and also look at how and new innovative ideas, out of box solutions could be undertaken. Uh, and at this time, globally, about over 500 energy projects are being discussed or negotiated, and this renewable energy is the biggest magnet of towards attracting FDI, because the discussion around climate change is now growing. You went to Qatar for some of the COP meetings, and I think this interaction can help countries like Pakistan, which suffered in last 2 years because of climate change, and if we do not take immediate actions, we will continue to suffer. I think we need to, lastly, I will just go to the recommendations. I think we need to work on alignment of economic growth and green and low carbon transition agenda based on our own realities, because we have our issues, we have our challenges, but still I think we can work with our friends from China, and perhaps look at enabling domestic policies and cooperation based on principle of common good and welfare, like Mustafa said, win-win for all. I think without a win-win approach, we cannot look at. And only through these steps we can have a fair and just transition to achieve a green, low carbon, and prosperous Pakistan. I think as per IGCEP, you're working on 30% by 2030. But how will that actually move? And that remains critical. And perhaps I've just installed a solar panel in my house, and I can imagine the challenges that an industrialist will have. For me to install that 15 kVA, it was like a nightmare, despite the favorable policies that we keep speaking about. So just imagine how much industrialists will suffer, and perhaps this transition. And I think all of us have to be champion of this, and I think need to bring, but more importantly, I think the joint and working group of energy and should now need to focus on renewable energy and perhaps the distribution of energy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think the JCC is a very good idea. I think I'm sure there will be a JCC as the new government has taken shape, and there's a lot to discuss and a lot to undertake collectively between both the countries. I would like to invite Ms. Hania Isad to talk about driving renewable energy integration in CPEC through collaborative investment strategies. Over to you, Hania. Not there. Then we'll move on to Mr. Akhil Jaffrey from the Private Power Infrastructure Board. And it'd be interesting to hear your opinion, sir, on how can what we are talking about and the situation on the ground. Because PPSB is responsible for attracting renewable investments, since AEDB, the Alternate Energy Development Board, is also part of PPIB now. And we know that you have had some international tenders to get renewable investments from different countries, and there was not as much attention from those companies as we were expecting. So what is the disconnect? What is there? The tariff? Is there an ambiguity on the tariff, or what are the reasons these investors are not pursuing the vast opportunities here? Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mustafa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege to be a part of this discourse today. And it is, I think, the talk of the time and talk of the town, energy transition and Pakistan's energy transition, because most of the problems the government is facing with regards to its economic growth and the problems we have are linked somehow with the availability of electricity and cheap electricity, be it the private sector, the agriculture sector, or the domestic consumers. Everyone is facing the brunt of high electricity prices in the country. The government has its plan. The government is actively pursuing to ensure that we utilize to the best our available clean energy resources in order to achieve the policy goals that we have set in different policies, such as the affordable electricity for all, energy security, sustainability, and also in environmental protection. As mentioned earlier by the speakers, CPEC been has played an important role in the in this critical change of bringing about change in the power sector of Pakistan and in developing of renewable energy projects. We have 800 megawatts plus of wind and solar power projects developed under CPEC, which are operational, and the solar projects developed under CPEC were the pioneering solar projects in Pakistan, and the total investment was about $1.2 billion that was made in the renewable energy sector, apart from the investment being made in the hydropower sector in Pakistan. As Daud Saab mentioned, the government has a target to achieve overall 60% share from renewables, including hydropower, by 2030, and 30% from the new technologies, wind, solar, and other renewable energy technologies, and 30% from hydropower. Right now, we stand at about 29-30% of share coming from these clean technologies. 70% is still conventional forms of power generation. But the good thing is that in our overall power mix, 61% share is coming from private power investments. And this role of share of private power investment will certainly increase in the future, because the government has a policy decision that there will be no more investment in the public sector, and all the power generation will be set up in the private sector. The IGCEP 2022 that was approved in end of 2020 talks about addition of 22 gigawatts of new capacity, primarily coming from renewables and hydro, with the wind and solar addition of about 13 gigawatts by 2031. The government has taken some initiatives, like as you mentioned, we didn't had any success in the first round of competitive bidding for the large-scale substitution solar energy projects. That was primarily linked with the issues concerning the tariff that was initially set as the benchmark tariff by NEPRA, and overall economic situation of the country before the elections, because it was hard for the investors. Although we had a very good feedback from the investors, they were investors, local investors, and also foreign investors were looking forward to developing these projects. But the issue was with the availability of financing, especially at concessional or at par, at rates at par at which we have been availing financing in the past for the renewable energy projects. I think as you stated, that what is the disconnect? Right now, we have a good policy framework set in place. The National Electricity Policy that was announced in 2021, that provides a broader framework under which different policies will work in the future. And in end of 2023, the government also announced the National Electricity Plan, which is sort of gives the implementation roadmaps and sets the target for different entities in the power sector, their roles and responsibilities, and the KPIs are set in that plan that will lead the Pakistan's energy transition in the future for the next. Well, it talks about initiatives to be carried out in the next 5 years, but it looks at a horizon of next 15 years of power sector transformation. If we talk about the government is targeting that 60% share will achieve based on the IGCEP iteration, because it is a software-based analysis being done to have the least cost generation. But if we talk about achievement of SDG goals and achieving as net zero carbon neutrality in the future, we need to do a lot more. UNESCAPE did a study back in 2021, the SDG roadmap for Pakistan, that it showed that in the current policy scenario, we'll be having a share of about 7% in the total final energy consumption of the country from renewables if we achieve this 60% target from renewables. In order to achieve the SDG goals, we need to add additional 13.7 gigawatts of renewable wind and solar and hydro generation by 2030-31. That will take us the total final energy consumption share of renewables to around about 24%. And that requires an additional investment of around about $14 to $15 billion alone in the generation side. One of the issues we are facing right now, and we have to, the government is also keen to overcome this issue in the short to medium term, is the availability of transmission network, the rehabilitation of the existing network, and the development of new green grid infrastructure that will be used to evacuate the power from renewables. We haven't tapped the renewable energy potential of Balochistan yet, which is far more, especially if we talk about solar and wind, compared to what we have in Punjab and Sindh. For example, the annual wind speeds in Sindh corridor, which we are exploiting right now, are in the range of 7.3 to 7.5 meter per second. But what we have in Balochistan goes up to 9 to 10 meter per second, some of the best sites in the world. Yeah, you can't just stand there. Yeah, true. But that's the missing link. And if we want to develop, and that's the most western part of the country, if we want to tap that potential, we have to develop long HVDC transmission lines. And there have been a couple of studies done by World Bank in which they did the resource assessment, the locational study. They identified the potential locations for the development of renewables and also identified the way forward for tapping them. And one of the recommendations is the development of HVDC lines from Balochistan to the load centers in Punjab and Sindh in short, medium to long term. And here comes the opportunity for more collaboration with the Chinese investors and the Chinese government in this under the CPEC part 2, because and we can leverage the PPP mode, which is also available in our policy, to develop these new not only power generation facilities, but also we can develop our long distance transmission networks under PPP mode. And we have seen examples, especially in Africa, in which multiple countries have joined hands to develop the grid infrastructure for renewables in PPP mode. And when we talk about energy transition, we can't just stop on developing wind and solar resources. We have to tap other resources as well. Waste to energy is another avenue which needs to be developed, and waste to energy projects cannot be developed on pure IPP mode, and PPP mode is the most suitable mode for development of these sort of projects. Not only waste to energy, but if we talk about geothermal resources, again, pure IPP might not work for such projects. For IPP mode, which is what we are doing under the current policies. So for waste to energy and geothermal, we need to have different modes, because the prime objective of waste to energy projects is managing the waste, and energy is sort of a byproduct of such plants. So it cannot be developed in the IPP mode, and PPP mode, we have global examples available with us as the best mode for development of these projects. Unless we plan to do it totally under the public sector, which is not possible considering the financial constraints we have. Along with that, as one of the speakers mentioned, that green hydrogen will play a significant role in the energy transition, also for Pakistan, because we have a lot of renewable energy resources available. There are technologies in the market right now in which we can use seawater directly for generation of green hydrogen without having the need to first purify the seawater and change it to clean water, drinking water for generation of green hydrogen. And some of the experts call green hydrogen as fuel of the future. It has multiple uses in different industries, across different sectors in the industrial sector, glass making, in power generation, transportation, agriculture, fertilizers. So there's also going to be a lot of export value for Pakistan if we produce green hydrogen locally. We can earn a lot of foreign exchange with the export of green hydrogen in the future. Pump storage is another avenue which is being looked after, being considered by the government, because as compared with the typical hydropower projects, pump storage has more value to in the existing network of Pakistan, because it provides stability to the grid, and also acts as a peaking power plant. So the more pump storage hydro will have in our system, we can have more share of intermittent renewable resources. And the type of system we have lots of generation in south. We have lots the main demand in the north. Developing pump hydro storage in the north will provide a greater stability, and we won't see the events like we saw in start of last year, a total blackout, which was started from the south, and the difference between the voltages in the north and southern grids. So again, pump storage hydro is another avenue which can be considered under the next phase of CPEC with the Chinese investment, and also that can be considered under the PPP mode. So I would conclude with the remarks that power generation based on renewable resources is the way forward the government is looking at, and with this support we can leverage our friendship with China to learn from their experiences and policy making and the energy transition, and also the technology they are utilizing for their own energy transition. And it's not only power generation, but we need the support of the Chinese investors and Chinese government in developing grid infrastructure that can evacuate that power for the future. Thank you.
I think you made some really good points, and I really enjoyed your presentation. Actually, this is something that I've also been saying, that when we talk about investments in green energy, I think that it has to be more focused on transmission infrastructure, grid infrastructure, power evacuation, because we have new power plants, even though some of them are fossil fuel power plants, but we have good mix of renewable and some are hydro, some are fossil fuel. But we have not invested in transmission lines. And there are, apart from Africa, there are in Pakistan some examples of PPP and BOT transmission projects, which can actually be good bankable projects. Nooriabad in Karachi, which Sindh government undertook, Dhaviji, and the other one is Lahore to Matiari, which State Grid has undertaken. So, but we have not, I think, opened up the regulatory framework for BOT investments in transmission lines. We have a very clear sort of a policy for IPPs in BOT, but not in transmission. So I think if we upgrade that, that can be very, very pertinent. So, and that is something that PCI and I personally have been advocating, of upgrading our infrastructure and then talking about more power generating projects. So I think Chinese can really assist us in that. And I think if we upgrade and make that framework better also in terms of the tariffs, I think NEPRA will also have to take a lead on clarifying and upgrading the tariffs of investments in transmission, and what tariffs investors can get That'd be very interesting.
Just to add one thing, you rightly mentioned that there's a need to revise our policies and upgrade them. We are already in the process of revising our transmission line policy, although that allows for investment in different modes, even in public-private partnership mode. But there's a need to of revision in the regulatory framework by NEPRA also, because in some cases we have seen we have the right policy in place, but the regulatory framework provides bottlenecks for such interventions.
Yes.
You know, in the two instances, in one in case of KE projects, renewable, and also in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, none of the Chinese participated because of the high tariff. So as long as we have a realistic, we can be pragmatic, but we have to be realistic also in terms of, you know,
Yes.
directing them.
Absolutely. And it has to be a profitable venture for any investor. Yes. Very interesting, I think, points. I want to go over to Hania, Miss Hania from IEEFA. She's an energy specialist for her remarks.
Hi, hello. Am I audible? I'm sorry, I've been having
Yes,
some connectivity. Yes,
you are.
my apologies for that. I'm sorry, I've been having some connectivity issues.
No
The
problem.
Wi-Fi just keeps going. Yeah. But I had a small presentation prepared, but since I'm basically logged in through my phone, I'll just go over my talking points. Firstly, I would like to thank Pakistan-China Institute for inviting me here. I think the list of speakers has been amazing, and we've very thoroughly covered the technical needs and the challenges that Pakistan's current grid has when it comes to renewable energy investments and integration. I wanted to basically speak about the financing side of things. How can we basically channel sustainable finance in order to make the plans that we have possible? And for that, I think China is a very good avenue for that. So at the risk of preaching to the choir, I'll just briefly go over what sustainable finance really is. So sustainable finance basically takes into account investment decisions that are considerate of environmental, social, and governance factors. And the outcomes of these investments are linked to climate change mitigation strategies and just transition aspects. So when we're speaking of the power sector, it has to do with renewable energy and how the transition towards clean energy sources happens in a just manner. And common tools that are basically utilized for sustainable finance, they include sustainable debt-related instruments such as green bonds, green loans, and very recently we've got sustainability-linked bonds and transition bonds as well. So these are different classes of basically debt instruments that are there to reach the common goal of inducting in more renewable energy by making finance available. Moving over to the traditional CPEC model that we've seen so far. Traditionally, CPEC projects have focused more on commercial type of lending. That's the model that we've seen, and it is understood that this premium had to be paid because we were starting off a very nascent sector in Pakistan, the coal sector. It was virtually non-existent before, so premium had to be paid. And then of course we had a lot of hydro projects in there as well. About 700 megawatts of solar and wind energy is also coming online through the CPEC portfolio. So the traditional model that we followed was a commercial type of model with LIBOR LIBOR benchmarked interest rates, high return on equities, and commercial loan tenor such as 10 years with Sinosure backed guarantee. So that's the traditional model that we've been following, which has a high cost of capital. In simple terms, it has a high cost of capital. Whereas when we talk about sustainable finance, I think the goal is to arrive at an arrangement which provides a lower cost of capital so that the overall cost of generation can come down and we can have a higher share of renewable energy. So interestingly, China has it has a very big sustainable debt market domestically. I think it ranks second to the United States when it comes to green bond in issuances. In 2020 alone, $120 billion worth of green bonds were issued, and the green loan market is in fact even larger. Almost $3 trillion US dollars were issued in terms of green loans. And surprisingly enough, as opposed to what we see in Western markets, in China, state-owned enterprises, they've had a very large role to play when it comes to sustainable debt issuance. So in China, almost 45% of the sustainable debt has been issued through state-owned banks, and that too at very, very affordable rates. So just as an example, in China, interest rates for sustainable debt instruments, they've been as low as 1.75%. So when we compare that to the traditional model that we have in Pakistan, I think we've been facing interest rates upwards of 7 to 8% even within the CPEC portfolio, simply because of the premium that we have to pay when it comes to the macroeconomic risk that Pakistan poses. So China has a very, very established sustainable debt market, green bonds and green loans. They're very, very prevalent, and it has really grown tremendously over the past 5 years. I think 70% growth has been witnessed since 2016. So there's a huge opportunity when we look at the CPEC portfolio and CPEC investments. There's a huge opportunity to tap into that market as well, because in Pakistan, within the CPEC, what we've seen is interest from state-owned enterprises mainly. So the banks that we have are China Development Bank, Exim Bank, even the EPC contractors. Most of these entities are state-owned bodies. So if within China domestically, there's a lot of SOE related sustainable debt issuance happening. Maybe some of this can trickle over to Pakistan as well. And this is where we sort of bring up the Third Belt and Road Forum that happened recently, where $100 billion in financing was announced for a greener tech push. And this is and the Green Investment Finance Partnership was also an outcome of this Belt and Road meeting that took place. So $100 billion with interest from China Development Bank, national banks in China, the Silk Road Fund, and this is all going to be blended capital, blended financing, low cost capital that has to be made available to developing countries. And this is where Pakistan, I think there's a great potential that Pakistan can tap into this market by basically collaborating with its Chinese counterparties and presenting, bankable projects. On the Pakistani side, I think what really needs to happen is that we need to present investment opportunities which are bankable for Chinese investors. We need to make our institutions, financial institutions and regulatory bodies, they need to provide clear guidelines when it comes to sustainable finance. We've got sustainable banking guidelines already, but I think the scope of those guidelines need to be expanded in order to have a clear taxonomy, which will provide a clear definition of what basically constitutes it as green and sustainable. So within that, maybe we can have our transmission projects as well, which are of course, linked towards achieving a clean energy transition. Maybe can have a renewable energy, pumped hydro in there. So I think a lot of work needs to be done in order to define what really is green, so that we can access, that maybe a portion of that $100 billion that has been earmarked for greener investments. So within Pakistan, I think the State Bank needs to sit down and develop maybe green bonds principles, a taxonomy, and then there really is hope with the new government that has come in that some macroeconomic stability will be achieved and we can move towards these goals collectively. So yeah, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Hania. I think very pertinent points. And I think your reference to green bonds and blended finance and green bond principles is important, because I think we haven't seen Pakistan tapping this huge
Yeah.
ocean of green bonds which are outside of Pakistan, and which if you remember, we discussed this in the last dialogue that we had, and you were a participant in that.
Yes.
That there's this, and in China, they panda bonds have been very, very popular and very successful. So in the capital markets, investors, green bond products that we, Pakistan, can actually make and launch, particularly with the lead of the State Bank. We
Yes.
haven't seen that happen so far. And that is, again, a huge area of investment, which we see is an opportunity still, which we can actually take forward as we proceed. Arvia, you wanted to say something. You wanted to make a point. Over to you.
Just very briefly, the point that our colleague just raised about the interest rates that factor in the macroeconomic risk for less developed countries is actually one of the issues that is on the table of the negotiations for climate finance and the reform, both of the multilateral development banks as well as the WTO. And that could be an interesting idea, for instance, for you as an institute to approach COP29 in terms of making proposals of how you can develop models for providing, together with international funding organizations, climate-related projects that include also sustainable elements such as local development. For instance, you were talking about the large investments in infrastructure, which are obviously a part of the journey that we are on, but there is also different ways to create local development and impact without having to make huge, as I was mentioning before, huge investments. And you could try to propose projects that are low investment, but also high impact in a short term for the creation, for instance, of recovery of materials. You were talking about bringing together circular models and energy. There are plenty of interesting models for you to try and develop.
Yes, I think there's a lot of high impact that we can have, particularly through international partners, and I think the opportunity is there, and we need to have a focused strategy on what is the buy-in internationally. And I think sometimes we are all over the place and overly ambitious, and at the end, the net result is zilch. So I think perhaps have a less ambitious 1, 2, 3 low-hanging fruit sort of targets, which are achievable and which are doable, and focus on that. I think we have concluded this dialogue, but I would like to open this up for some questions, suggestions, ideas, remarks by people who are here. Ambassador Masood Khalid has a lot of wisdom to impart every time I have the privilege of his company. Hamza Haroon
I
is
just want to
here.
make one point.
Yes.
And that is gas versus electricity and green electricity. Our capacity of using gas for domestic purposes, even for industries, is reducing by the day because the reserves are depleting. So I think,
And we are importing it,
and we are importing it at very high
which is
cost.
also not sustainable.
So especially we spoke about fertilizers, plants, and other, even for domestic use it will. So we will have to move towards electricity. So for that to happen, I think hydrogen is one area where we should immediately work on. At least look at feasibilities at this stage through the joint working group, as you can recommend that. But also in terms of some projects, and just not just putting them for bidding under the SIFC platform is not enough. I think we need to do handholding of Chinese investors or other investors to actually learn the way that we do business and perhaps move ahead with, because it's not going, otherwise we'll keep having these round tables and there will be no impact.
Certain point, but Daud Saab mentioned that we need to make a transition towards electricity, not only because we are using imported gas and the local gas is subsidized and we need to move away from subsidies. But within the power sector, the main reason for the increase in electricity prices and ever increasing capacity payments is the mismatch between the summer demand and the winter demand. Because 70% of our demand comes from domestic sector and only about 15 to 20% from industrial sector, which is other way around in most of the countries. There's a continuous base demand of 50-60% of electricity in the developed countries. Most of our load comes in the summer comes from heating and cooling, for which we are using, especially for heating, we're using gas and even for cooking. So we need to make a transition towards electricity for heating, cooling, cooking, and even for transportation, even for railways. We can save a foreign exchange for import of fuels and have a stable demand that will also contribute in the reduction of electricity prices. Thank you.
Ji sir, please. I just wanted to say that, yeah, actually you're right. That is the primary load is heating and cooling and cooking, railway, transport. I also, Jay, I want to say that it's also important when we talk about new opportunities like green hydrogen and etc. We have to come out of this PSDP sort of syndrome जो है ना जी, या अलमिया कह लें आप, ये जो हम उसमें फंसे हैं ना कि जी वो पहले PC1 बनाए, उस वक्त तक मेरे जो बाल रह गए वो भी गिर जाएंगे. And दुनिया में in the world we have, you know what, and of course Hassan Daud Saab, Narendra Modi, I'm not a fan of Narendra Modi, but there's a reason why India has a seat on the table, on the big boys table. They abolished the planning commission many years ago in his first term, and now he'll be coming the third term. You know, sir, he will probably win the third term. So we have to have a private sector led model, like most of the world does now, where there is these feasibilities are developed by investors. These billions of rupees which you will spend, government will spend on making feasibilities, private sector can spend it if they see that there will be money to be made in the future. They will undertake these feasibilities. So I think that primary outlook to development also needs to be changed, and I think that's very important. Yes, sir.
No, first of all, I mean, it was an expert-led discussion, and we being a journalist and an outlier, but nevertheless benefited a great deal from the points which were made here, especially by Ambassador Moinul Haq and my friend Mr. Hassan Daud Bhatt and others. I think there is a convergence here, first of all, that we need to, go for an energy mix and diversify our dependence on the fossil fuels, gas, etc. And the good thing is that Chinese and Pakistan governments are on the same page as far as green energy is concerned and this transition, green corridor. So I think this is a very positive approach which the two governments have agreed upon. And now that we are in the second phase of CPEC, I think there are opportunities which need to be tapped. We did pretty well in the first phase of CPEC, yes, but I think we can also, do an exercise in lessons learned and see how can Pakistan is currently facing multiple challenges, challenge of financial constraints and an enabling environment. You made, Mr. Wang, I think, made a reference to good environment for investors. That goes without saying. An investor, a businessman will come when he finds that the market is profitable and market is secure. We provided that facility, that environment in the first phase, but I think together Pakistan and China can mutually work to see how further we can improve this climate. Now, as far as the potential is concerned, I think experts here have highlighted what we can do. We have not optimally utilized the potential which Pakistan has for renewables. We have great source of water, solar, wind, and Balochistan terrain, which provides an ideal ground for wind power projects. So I think we need to really focus on that. It's good that government of Pakistan is thinking of producing 60% of energy from renewables by 2030, but we have to walk the talk. That's very important. I think we need to look at, the experts need to look at whether joint ventures will work. And this is a good suggestion which was made, I think, by our friend from AEB in the PPP mode. And what Mr. Mustafa said, that we need to change the mindset also. Whether PC1, that laborious and tedious process of PC1 going from one end to another and sometime not ending anywhere, does it need to be done away with? We should, investment means private sector. Now we are looking at private sector of China, not state-owned enterprises to that extent, which was in the first phase. So how do we attract them? How do we lure them in? Does our system really, allow that? This business of PC1, and you gave the example of India. I don't want to repeat that, but I think there's a need to have a holistic approach and see and revamp our approach. It's not easy. It's not easy because we are used to this kind of planning process for the last 70 years. So how to make that change? It's not that easy. But if we can, we have set up these mechanisms, BOI and SIFC now, but they will only be able to achieve their objectives if a good environment is provided to foreign investors, be it Chinese. And in the renewables, I think we have good potential of attracting our European partners also. Europe is doing pretty well, and some joint ventures, some projects can be explored. And my last point is that when I talk of holistic approach, I mean it has to involve the government, the industry, and the academia. We ignore academia to a great extent. Chinese example is before this. The friend from Peking University made an excellent presentation, So there is a nexus in China between the academia and industry and the government. And the basic research work is done by academia for the government. So I think we need to encourage and promote that approach. So this is all, I think, but I must compliment in the end your institute that you are focusing on this particular aspect, which has remained somewhat in the background. And I think this discussion will help to take this process forward. Thank you very much.
Sir, 2 points just wanted to add quickly. One regarding the in China, industry, academia, and investors. Hassan Daud Bhatt Sahab and I have had the privilege of being at the Peking University. And even Peking, the Institute of Energy, they have collaboration with energy companies. And then the energy companies are working with the students. And the students are actually working as analysts for the energy companies. So there's a very close working relationship, which is actually a practitioner's relationship, not just a relationship of discussion, but they're actually working together. And the academia is actually helping those companies to better be more informed about the market, make more informed decisions. So it's not having the academia just for the sake of academia, but it's actually benefiting them in business. And second, I just wanted to mention about SIFC. I feel that in Pakistan, we like to reinvent the wheel a lot. You see, and we have these excellent acronyms every 5 years which come. And then there's this great branding exercise in which we spend a lot of money on publishing ads, etc. But actual projects perhaps are not as much as the money spent on the advertisements. When we have, it's like iftari, maybe I'm a little hungry, but if you have a dumba biryani in front of you, it's there. Perhaps some pieces have been eaten, the rest are there. And then there's also some Sindhi cuisine, some khatti dal is there. Then why are you looking to go to a restaurant elsewhere? When we have the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, Hassan Daud Bhatt Sahab, you were project director. At that time, $62 billion was charted out. ML1 is part of that. SEZs are part of that. These are investors, we go to China, they are ready to come to Pakistan. As long as you promise that you will not bomb them when they come here, because there are a lot of security alerts, they are ready to come. Why are we making alternates? And of course, and we want investment from all countries. But when there is a trajectory of investment lined up, Moinul Haq Saab has just come from there. Sir, you went to also many private companies. Zhejiang, I remember I saw on your Twitter, you went to many places. These are investments which are lined up. ML1 is $6.2 billion. So while SIFC is a great initiative, I think that when we have something right in front of us, we should link CPEC with the connectivity that is already bringing. CPEC is already linking us with Central Asia. It is already linking us with other countries in the neighborhood. So I think we should not reinvent the wheel. And secondly, just this morning I was seeing that Afghanistan has invested $35 million in Chabahar. So I mean, I don't know what more to say. But एक sec, गुजारिश. We have always played a very, and I don't want to go into geopolitics right now, but the relationship that we've had with the current Afghan dispensation, we've given them a lot of support. They have their families here, their safe havens here, and now they are in power. But they're investing in Chabahar. They have not invested in Gwadar. And I remember when perhaps you were at the ambassador, there was a foreign ministers meeting in Beijing, Afghanistan. Wang Yi was not state councillor then, he was foreign minister, and Shah Mahmood Qureshi. Do you remember that? And Beijing always wanted to enhance to third-party cooperation. There's a joint working group headed by the foreign secretary on international cooperation in JCC. And Afghanistan, it was supposed to connect to Afghanistan, Wakhan corridor, etc. But Afghanistan government, who we always have considered as a younger brother country to Pakistan, has invested in Chabahar instead of Gwadar. And of course, Iran is also brotherly country, but I think it's time to re-examine our strategy of investment, that beyond the branding and the sloganeering, where are the tangibles? I think these are hard questions, but we need to talk about this.
Point was that, of course, CPEC is a mechanism which is already available, lined
Yes,
up
yes.
to attract investment from China.
Yes, sir.
But SIFC is meant to attract investment from Middle East countries, Saudi Arabia. So that is, a subtle difference.
Mr. Hamza Haroon.
First of all, thank you so much, Mustafa, for organizing this. Your team has done an incredible job in selecting the experts who've clearly enlightened all of us here. I'll just make a very brief point and talk about what Arvia mentioned in the very beginning of a whole of society approach. And then the Honorable Mr. Wang Sita mentioned the great achievements the state of China has made in. Yeah.
And actually share your profile.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Hamza. I'm the country head for Vulnerable 20 Climate Vulnerable Forum, which is working with 68 countries now, including Pakistan, in creating the right environment for investment strategies to promote better climate financing and to promote a prosperity plan for all these countries. So that's what we're working on. And I wanted to mention all the great things that I've heard and clearly enlightened us. And Mustafa, you mentioned how do we re-examine our investment strategy, right? Let me give you an example of 3 countries that are currently doing this: Bangladesh, Ghana, and Sri Lanka. What these countries have done in the last 4 or 5 years, they have developed a comprehensive national climate prosperity plans. These prosperity plans give a clear outline of what socio-economic indicators will be benefited, what projects need to happen, and the same discussion we're having right now, that how can we make these projects bankable? And they have addressed directly that. And let me tell you what the results are now. Bangladesh is already in conversations with international private organizations to be partners in their wind generation capacity. There is a deal that's on the table for Bangladesh right now that's worth $1.3 billion for 500 megawatt project in Bangladesh, led by private investors. And here we are discussing the great opportunity that lies within this friendship of Pakistan and China. There's $100 billion that these private investors are looking for. But yet, we are reinventing the wheel, but not re-examining exactly the way you said on what the investment strategy of Pakistan needs to be. So for me and my organization for the next couple of years, hopefully, we will be working in working with all of you, God willing, to create this national investment strategy for Pakistan. So we go and run in front of the investors and know exactly what we're asking for, why we're asking for, and how we're asking for it. That remains the disconnect, as we pointed out here as well. So hopefully we can work together in moving the needle forward. Thank you.
Sir, anyone else? Commodore Sab?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. And in front of experts and former ambassadors, and I especially thanks both you and former ambassador that you are talking about the academia, as I am from the Bahria University, and it's very encouraging to listen that Bahria academia should be involved. Uh, uh, I would say only because lot things have been covered on the very larger, on the national or the bigger investor scales. But I will urge to analyze the China's approach of the people-centric thinking and the sustainable development goals of the UN. Uh, Many Chinese project and Chinese thought process starts from benefiting the people, not benefiting the larger business and investment on billions of dollars. For this reason, the low carbon emissions and things like that, they may not be, like you were saying, they every few years we reinvent the wheel and we say take the few slogans in the market, and the carbon emissions is probably should not be the one that we should working on this by reducing the carbon emission, how it affects the people. Like we very less talk about how the CPEC affected the common people. Like if we say the SDG 6, there's it's a safe water. It provided the safe water, the fresh water in the Gawada, the desalination plant, the SDG 2, the food security, these green. If you want to talk about the solar projects, the solar panels, the farm which are fed with the water run by the solar panels are much more beneficial, especially the rice crop and the timely watering of the wheat crop, which are the staple food of this country. So this is the important to talk about as a whole, that we should talk about the how the green technology can help us developing like the Chinese way, the helping the people, and like the sustainable industry, the SDG 9. Because these power projects are sometimes these green energy projects that don't need the power lines, which we were transmission lines, which we're talking about. Like in Gilgit, the local hydel projects give the power to the localities, and that their local development increased. So like when we are talking about the Balochistan wind tunnel,
wind channel, which can give the lot of wind power. The nearest mining industry and mining fields is around about 400 within the 400 kilometers of that area. So we don't need to rig the transmission lines and collect to the national grid, but we can have the wind power there, and then its consumption in the mining fields, and have that electric consumption there. So we have to think what is beneficial for us. And in the last, I would say, the few favorable policy, like you were mentioning the AEDB. ADB favorable policy doubled the installation agencies, solar power installation agencies in less than 1.5 years. It goes from around 170 to 350. And likewise, in very early stage, we finished the low interest rate investment by the domestic solar consumers. Like Dr. Hassan Daud mentioning, it is very difficult for a person to afford a 1.5 million investment, but it has a return of investment in within the 3 years. You will have to, and you will have to teach the people that now gas is no option for the domestic use. You have to use the electricity, and it is a very, very high return of investment, very, very good return of investment. So we have to educate the people. So my recommendation would be that one is that you may say the terminology use not the green power, but the green and the sustainable power, so that whole SDG competitive for the people. And then for the from few domestic people centric policies should be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Very kind. I think we've had a very exhausting dialogue, positively exhausting, and very important points. And we will have a report coming out from the key points and key takeaways and what should be done. I think that's very important. So there's a way forward. I really am very grateful for everyone to be here. And before we wrap up, so please.
I'm Salahuddin Chaudhry from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, former diplomat. I'm greatly enlightened, Mustafa Haider, by a very, very interesting discourse and debate today. I have just one question in my mind. You're all experts. I'm no expert. But like you, I'm also a human being. When I say that, I say it philosophically. With everything divorced down to the human being, what that human being is going to get from whatever projects, whatever plans, whatever ideas you dole out. We talk about PC1 today. We talk about Planning Commission. We said, these are the acronyms probably of no use today. However, these are the departments which produce 5-year plans. These 5-year plans were known the world over. South Korea, Japan, Malaysia, I was there at one point, and the Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad said, we owe it to Pakistan for the formulation of the 5-year plan which your planning division did. We learned a lot. They went forward. Similarly, several other countries, even Sri Lanka. So what I'm trying to drive at is the human element. And at the grassroots level, I'm sorry if I offend anybody else, I don't want to. What I'm trying to say is the capacity that has to be built at the grassroots level. Hamza, you spoke very well. You said something very important. Even you mentioned at one time, we have to think just like the renewable energy. I said, let's renew our mindset. And Mustafa, you mentioned that the mindset has to be changed, or maybe a change has to be undergone for the mindset. Now, when I say that, I particularly refer to the young-centric mindset. They got to know what the government is doing, got to know what the private sector is doing, got to know what the academians are thinking and telling and talking. But this has to be conveyed to the younger people. They are the future. Climate change is going to be one of the most difficult, most dangerous things in the future. We have to think as human beings, what are we doing? You see, okay, lot of expertise. And of course, Ambassador Mulhog mentioned something very important. It's called unblocking of third-party partnership. It's very important. When it's a third party, that means people beyond the government levels, people who are not part of the academia probably, but I think from my point of view, they are the grassroots level people who have to understand, who have to be made to understand. CPEC is a wonderful idea, wonderful initiative. I say CPEC's China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, but I can also say China-Pakistan Energy Corridor. It can be said China-Pakistan Agriculture Corridor. The Chinese governments have been talking about it. And they say you have to think in terms of being a human being, the rationale. And if they understand you, you have all the support everywhere. And you can develop so many things. Somebody mentioned the academics must be brought in. I say private-public partnership is equally important today. If we have to, you see, like, the universities, the colleges, the schools, and there, from our point of view, lifestyle needs to be changed at the grassroots level. I mentioned grassroots level again and again because we need to probably bring about a legislation to introduce the right kind of education, educating the mindset, and that you do through legislation right from the primary age. If they do is they start from now, like the Japanese have done, the Chinese you have done the same thing. You see, so once the people get educated right from the primary age, then you can probably build your capacity, understand better, and support. From my point of view, Mustafa Haider, there has to be a balance. Just the government cannot do everything, and the private sector can also cannot do everything possible. The other day, we were trying to do an exposition, regarding climate change, art to artworks and technology. We had the Air University involved, and the gentleman, the dean there, was mentioning, look, we have a lot of young boys and girls. They're doing wonderful work, new experimentation, new developments in the energy sector, but we lack one thing, and we cannot connect with the industrial world. We cannot connect with the corporate sector. And they named their department as commercialization department for bringing the academics, the students, with the factories, the industries, and the corporate sector. So there's a gap. And I think, Khalid Masood, you also mentioned at one point that this needs to be done. So wonderful discourse. I have learned a lot today, a lot of technicalities, and also a lot of our supporters from abroad, experts. But we got to think one thing, we've got to take the matter to our younger people, make them understand, and they will feel it. And even in the rural areas, what happens? If you go to the poor people, ours is a poverty-stricken country. We are a developing country. So at the lowest level, they do not understand. They do not even feel. The conscience is missing. You said the disconnect. This is the disconnect from my point of view. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mustafa Haider, I'm very grateful.
Sir, very grateful. Thank you very
grateful
much,
to
sir,
you
for your
having
presence.
me involved. And
Thank
this is my impression.
Thank you.
But we have to go forward by the balance of the two. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the international participants and speakers as well. Very grateful. Ms. Hania, Ms. Arvia, Mr. Du, and others.